everybody, and welcome to That Wrestling Show, the podcast where all pro wrestling matters. I'm your host, Bill Yankovic, and this week, probably going to be a short show, I'm going to be honest with you, but going to be previewing this Sunday's NXT Takeover Vengeance Day. This looks like a pretty good card from top to bottom. 3 championship matches on that show this coming Sunday. Plus, I'm going to have a serious discussion on fans and crushes and why I think it can go a little too far at times. Well, let's get to some of the news of this week, and I'm going to start with news that was announced yesterday, and for this, I have to play the following song. For those of you that are new, whenever I play this song, it usually means that someone that a lot of us think very highly of is either gotten married or has gotten engaged. Well, I'm here to report that me and him is engaged. She and Keith Lee are gonna get married. And the worst part about it is, I had a chance to interview her. I had a chance. But Jim Boy Star wanted to do it because she was a fan of The Walking Dead. So they had this kind of conversation. Okay. Get it together, Bill. Get it together. But in all seriousness, congratulations to Mia Yim and Keith Lee. I personally was like, when are they ever going to get engaged? But they announced their engagement yesterday. Congratulations to the both of them. Hopefully a wonderful, long marriage for Keith Lee and Mia Yim. They look like a wonderful couple together. Okay, Braun Strowman. We saw him recently at the Royal Rumble, and then he wasn't on last week. Well, we know why. Braun Strowman announced on his Instagram that he is dealing with an infection that has spread to his bloodstream. He posted several videos noting that he had contracted the infection over the weekend, this past weekend, and is currently going IV treatment to eradicate it so he can return to action. Strowman said that he has lost 15 pounds over a matter of days and feels as if he's gained 50 pounds of water weight in his joints, but the antibiotics are working. This is a very serious thing. Any kind of infection is a serious thing, especially into the bloodstream. It's a good thing they got it right away. Hopefully Braun will take it easy for a little bit, and we'll see him real soon once he is healthy, once he is 100%. Other news, the reboot of Wipeout, hosted by John Cena, has an official date for when it will premiere. So everyone, get your calendars, get your paper, pencils ready. Gonna want to mark the date down. It will be Thursday, April the 1st. That's right. April Fool's Day will be the premiere of Wipeout, hosted by John Cena. It will also feature comedian Nicole Byer and model Camille Kostick serving as host and in the field, respectively. The original series of Wipeout, which was on ABC, had a very good run. It went from 2008 to 2014, spawned a couple of video games and games on your phones. It's currently on reruns. I know it's on syndication reruns, and I think it's on a couple other channels as well. But this new version of Wipeout will be on TBS. So once again, the date, Thursday, April the 1st, April Fool's Day, the new edition of Wipeout, hosted by John Cena, will be on TBS. Alright, if I didn't talk about the Nia Jax moment this week, I feel that I would be doing a disservice to a lot of people. So for those of you who have been living under a rock, which is not a lot of you, actually, I say our fans are, our group is a very good group. We had a funny moment on Raw Monday night. It was Lana against Nia Jax in a tables match. No, that's not the funny part. During the match, actually closer towards the end of the match, Nia Jax tries for a leg drop on the apron where Lana is. She misses the leg drop. Lana moves out of the way, and you hear her screaming. And she's like, "Ah! Ah!" And then she blurts out of the blue, "My hole!" And then Lana puts her through a table, and Lana wins the tables match. Now, I'm gonna be upfront with you guys. I actually missed her saying "my hole." I missed it. I wasn't paying attention to what she said. It wasn't until I got on my phone, and then the following day, where it became this, big buzz in the internet community of what Nia Jax said. So it was kind of funny in its own way. So it has gotten a little bit of coverage. It's kind of one of those weird things that you can't quite really explain unless you've seen it and you've know of it. So, but hopefully Nia Jax's hole will be okay. I want to talk about some TV real quick, some wrestling TV. Ring of Honor had a really good show this week. Tracy Williams fought the world famous CB, the wrestler formerly known as Cheeseburger. And I gotta say, world famous CB looked really good in the ring against Tracy Williams in that match. And then they had an 8-man tag main event that really was a no contest, so it really didn't go much of anywhere with that. So, but I thought the Williams CB match was a pretty doggone good match. I would, if you haven't seen it, go out of your way. I'm not saying it's a 5-star match or anything, but it's worth a watch. I think CB has improved a lot since I last watched him probably about a year ago before the pandemic. So he looked really good. Really, really good. AEW, that was kind of interesting. That street fight main event was good. Kenta and Jon Moxley, they're going to face off in a couple of weeks for the IWGP US title. That's going to be a fun match there. And then with Kenny Omega, because now, we're building towards the Revolution pay-per-view, which is March the 7th. And as of right now, there is no named challenger for the AEW World title. It's going to be very interesting to see what they do, where they go with how they decide if Kenny Omega is going to defend the title or not on that pay-per-view. I mean, there's a possibility that he might not defend the title on the pay-per-view. It is a good possibility, so have to wait and see. One more piece of news, and then we're going to get into previews. Kaiji Muto, the Great Muta, made history today, beating Go Shiozaki in Budokan to win the GHC heavyweight title. That's the main championship of Pro Wrestling Noah. And by doing so, Keiji Muto becomes the first person in history to have held the IWGP, the Triple Crown, and the GHC heavyweight title at some point in their career. That is a very big accomplishment. Muto is in his 50s. He's 58, actually. I'm sorry. He's the third person to have ever done it. I thought he was the first, but he's actually the third. Kensuke Sasaki and Yoshihiro Takayama are the other two. I believe, from what I've heard, this was a very, very good match, so I'm probably going to go out of my way to watch that match to see how good it is. Muto at 58 winning the GHC heavyweight title is very, very interesting. There were other championship matches on this show today. Hayata and Yoshinari Ogawa successfully defending the GHC junior heavyweight tag titles, beating Ikuto Hidaka and Kotaro Suzuki. Saiki Yoshioka defeated Daisuke Harada to win the GHC junior heavyweight title, and Keno defeated Masakatsu Funaki to stay the GHC national champion. So, a big day all around for Pro Wrestling Noah, and congratulations once again to Keiji Muto winning the GHC heavyweight title, becoming only the third man in history to have accomplished the rare feat of winning the IWGP heavyweight title, the Triple Crown heavyweight title, and the GHC heavyweight title. This Sunday is, well, yes, it is Valentine's Day, but it is also NXT Takeover Vengeance Day, and there are 5 matches on this card, and it is a stacked card from top to bottom. Like, literally, I can't remember the last time I've said that about a takeover, but this is a legit stacked card. Any one of these matches on a regular NXT would be the main event of an NXT. So basically, in a sense, you have 5 main events on one show, and for this being their first takeover of 2021, they've really put a great card together. So, I'm going to go through each match, and I'm going to tell you who will win those matches. And we'll start with the 2 tournament finals that are going to take place this Sunday. The finals of the first ever Women's Dusty Classic will take place as Ember Moon and Shotzi Blackheart. They will face Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. That'll be the women's finals of the Dusty Tag Classic. The team that wins that will receive a future WWE Women's Tag Team Championship match. So how did both teams get to this point? Well, let's take a look. Let's start with Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. They were the first ones to get to the finals. They defeated Aaliyah and Jessie Kamea in the quarterfinals. And then in the semifinals, they defeated Casey Catanzaro and Kaden Carter. For Ember Moon and Shotzi Blackheart, they got to the finals this past Wednesday. They defeated Marina Shafir and Zoe Stark in the quarterfinals, and then defeated this past Wednesday Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell in the semifinals of that tournament. This is going to be an interesting match. These women have history here, but this is for the first one. I'm going to go with Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. I think that's going to be the team that's going to win this, and that would set up a very interesting women's tag team title match against Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax. Wow, that would be a heck of a match right there if it is to go that way. I'm going to say Kai and Gonzalez win the women's Dusty Classic. Then we go to the men's. It will be the grizzled young veterans of James Drake and Zach Gibson against the I guess you could say the Cinderella story of this tournament, MSK of Nash Carter and Wes Lee, formerly of the Rascals. Let's talk about how both teams got to this point. MSK was revealed to be a mystery team that was added to the tournament. They defeated in the first round Jake Atlas and Swerve Scott. And then in the quarterfinals, they defeated Drake Maverick and Killian Dane. And then in the semifinals, they defeated Joaquin Wilde and Raul Mendoza of Legado del Fantasma. For James Drake and Zach Gibson, the grizzled young vets, in the first round they defeated Everrise, Chase Parker, and Matt Martell. In the quarterfinals they defeated Kushida and Leo Ruff. And in the semifinals they defeated Tommaso Ciampa and Timothy Thatcher to get to this point. And the team that wins this match will receive a future shot at the NXT Tag Team titles. I think it would be a very fascinating story if MSK were to come from literally out of nowhere to win this tournament, but I don't see it happening. I think the grizzled young veterans are going to overtake this match, and James Drake and Zach Gibson will win the men's version of the Dusty Tag Team Classic. And then let's get to the 3 championship matches. We have a triple threat match for the NXT Women's title. Io Shirai will defend against Toni Storm and Mercedes Martinez in a triple threat match. This is going to be a very, very fun match. Io Shirai, you can make a legit argument as being the best female wrestler in the world today. Toni Storm, even though she's young, she's in her 20s, she has the miles on her, and Mercedes Martinez, a 20-year veteran of the business. You got a lot of experience, you've got youth, you've got high flying, all together put in here. This is going to be a very fun triple threat match. And I'm going to say Io is going to retain the women's title. I don't see her losing it just yet. Maybe a couple more months, and then we'll see where it goes. But I think Io Shirai is going to retain the women's title. The NXT North American title will be defended as Johnny Gargano will face Kushida. Gargano tried to get out of this match on Wednesday, but failed miserably, I might add. And Kushida has been on a roll. Look, Johnny Gargano's had the belt 3 times. This is his 3rd reign. I don't think it's going to kill him if he loses this match. I think Kushida will win the NXT North American title. And the main event of this takeover is for the NXT Championship, as Finn Balor will defend the title against Pete Dunne. Holy cow, what a match this is going to be. Finn's had the belt since September, I believe. Yeah, September. He's fought O'Reilly twice. I think he's fought a couple other people here and there. But Pete Dunne is such a good wrestler. He really is. And I think a heel NXT champion could be something they need at this time. So I'm going to say Pete Dunne wins the NXT title and becomes the new champ over Finn Balor this Sunday at TakeOver. And of course, this event will be streamed live on the WWE Network. One of the last events to appear on the WWE Network before WWE Network goes over to Peacock in the United States. Okay, I want to take this time to talk about something very serious. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I actually followed this story throughout the week, and this is in a way a cautionary story of what fame can get you. And this story happened on Twitter. And, you know, one of the things with social media, if you use it the right way, is that you can interact with wrestlers, interact with celebrities, athletes, whatever. And, you know, who knows? Maybe they'll get to answer your question. This person, and I'm using that very, very loosely, is an Alexa Bliss fan. And I understand, you know, there are people that think Alexa Bliss is a very beautiful woman. I'm not saying that she isn't, but there are a lot of people who think she's very attractive. Well, this one fan, and I'm only going to refer to his Twitter account name, Albert Little 666. Well, he started to post stuff on Twitter that, number one, was false, and number two, would threaten the life of Alexa Bliss, basically. So, Albert Little 666 goes on to Twitter and talks about how Alexa Bliss is his wife, and that her fiance, who is the musician, whose name I cannot remember, because, you know, I have such a wonderful memory. Ryan Cabrera, that's his name, Ryan Cabrera. So, he says that Cabrera has stolen her from him, and that he was going to Orlando to get, you know, Alexa back. And he goes on this tirade for the entire week of, I'm going to go to Orlando, I am going to find you, I'm going to kill your, you know, so-called fiance. It's a scary thing. And there were many, many, many people who were adding the Orlando police on Twitter, put up, you know, tag the FBI on Twitter. I think there were a lot of people that actually called the Orlando police and were like, hey, you got a problem here. And I will be honest with you folks, I reported this person's account to Twitter twice this week. And I did it because, crap, I don't want to see anybody die. You know, I'm not saying I have a crush on Alexa Bliss, but my God, you know, this is a person who, you know, is like, ugh. So, it ended up yesterday that this person's account, again, I use that term person very loosely, is banned. No longer on the Twitter. As far as what will happen if Orlando police and the FBI are going to get involved, that remains to be seen. But this, I do want to talk about this, because we have celebrity crushes. I have celebrity crushes as well. Drew Barrymore, Stacy Keibler, at one point Katy Perry, but she got kind of a little too weird for me, so I kind of moved on from her. Asuka, those are like the three main ones: Drew Barrymore, Stacy Keibler, and Asuka. But even though I might have a celebrity crush on these people, it doesn't give you the right to just go on to social media, go on to Twitter and be like, hey, I'm going to come to your house, I'm going to take out so-and-so, and I'm going to bring you back home, and we're going to get married, and we're going to have one, blah, 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 blah. There is a certain limit. There's a boundary that we all have to follow as human beings. There's a thing called privacy that a lot of people don't seem to remember anymore. You have to respect the privacy of any and all individual. No matter how good of a person they are, no matter how bad of a person they are, we have to respect their privacy. There's a difference here between having a crush and an obsession. The obsession is where this is going into. And a perfect example of that is the guy that shot John Lennon. He had an obsession. He was a fan of John Lennon. He had an obsession. And he ended up shooting him. A lot of wrestling fans got together, probably without knowing each other, and were like, we are not going to let this happen. We cannot. There's no way. This is a person, just a person in general, whose life is at risk by some freak. And because of the many, many people on Twitter, this, again, I say it loosely, this person is no longer on Twitter. Hopefully it is the end of this story. But I'm afraid it is not going to be the end of the story. I am afraid we're going to get more of this in the very near future. And, this is where, and I can see at times, my dad's argument of how social media can be bad. This story is a perfect example of how social media can be bad. When you have a person who obsesses over a celebrity like this, threatens to do this, threatens to do that, threatens to harm another person. That's where the evil in social media does come into play. My advice to all of those who have celebrity crushes, because, like I said, I have mine, you have yours, don't go crazy over them. That's why they're called celebrity crushes. Because deep down inside, we're never going to really marry them. Unless you are Nick Cannon and you somehow manage to marry Mariah Carey and then end up getting her pregnant with twins. So but there's the thing. Nick Cannon was not obsessed with Mariah Carey. He had a crush on her. He managed to end up marrying her because he became a celebrity and they happened to get together. This person's not a celebrity at all. And that's why we haven't seen Alexa Bliss. We didn't see Alexa Bliss on Raw this week. I know they're not going to say why, but I have a feeling that this individual is the reason why she was not on Raw Monday night, for her protection, for her safety. So, all I'm saying, folks, here, because I'm going to be wrapping up the show shortly, is it's okay to have a celebrity crush. Just don't go batshit crazy over that person to the point where law enforcement has to get involved and you end up doing something that you will regret for the rest of your life. Now, before I get into the plugs, I do have an announcement that I want to make at this time. For those of you that did not hear the latest episode of WW Free, myself and Jim Boy Star, we are going to be doing a new podcast. You can mark the date down, Sunday, March the 28th, the start of the brand new podcast series, Bill Learns Kingdom Hearts. It is a podcast where I watch 30 minutes of Kingdom Heart the video game Kingdom Hearts, and I have a discussion with Jim Boy Star on what I saw in that 30 minutes, what I liked, what I didn't like, and it's a family-friendly show. I think you guys are going to really like this podcast. You're going to get to see a different, you're going to get to, well, not see, but hear, you're going to get to hear a different side of me. I honestly never played the game as growing up as a teen. I'm not a fan of role-playing games, but you're going to get to hear me talk about this and see what I thought of Kingdom Hearts. So, once again, the date, Sunday, March 28th, Episode 1 of Bill Learns Kingdom Hearts will be coming out on whatever podcast stream you listen to. So, on that note, that's going to wrap it up for this week, so let's get into the plugs. If you have any questions or comments, send an email, wrestlingman@thatwrestlingshow.com. Follow the show on Twitter @WrestlingShow11. Follow us on Instagram @ThatWrestlingShow. Join the Facebook group. It is That Wrestling Show fan group, and once you add yourself, you could join the group. We are almost at 500 members. We are very close to the 500 mark. We just need to nudge that number over, and then we'll be at 500. I put the link in the description of each and every episode, so if you can't find it in Facebook, the link is right there. You can copy and paste. And if you like what you heard here, check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/thatwrestlingshow. To hear some extra content, including the brand new monthly series, That Wrestling Show After Dark, with myself and Fro, where we meet up once a month to talk, non-wrestling related topics. There may be a sprinkle or two of wrestling, but you're going to get mostly non-wrestling related topics. Alright, now, let's talk about not only friends of the podcast, but also podcasts that you should check out. Check out Our Vantage Point, the Retro Wrestling Podcast with Joe Murata and Michael Quinn. This week, they're on a little bit of a break, so this week they do a live review via, audio and tape of WWF Primetime Wrestling from January 16th, 1989. This is the famous Bobby Heenan Red Rooster, a tent of peace held by Gorilla Monsoon, and the key word being attempt. Now also, and this came out within the last week, ladies and gentlemen, this is the only podcast that I will plug their Patreon for. The only podcast. If you sign up for their top tier, which is $5, you can get, right now, their review of WrestleMania 8. A hell of a review. I finished listening to it last night. You should check it out. Our Vantage Point, the Retro Wrestling Podcast. Also, check out Greetings from Allentown with Peter Winston. He watches one episode of wrestling each week in his own unique way. This week, he reviews an episode of NWA Worldwide from March 24th, 1990, with a match between Beautiful Bobby and Flying Brian. And also, don't forget his side show, GFA Live, with him and Keithy Langston, as they watch, something different every week. Recently, they came out with an episode of WWF Superstars from January 7th, 1995, the debut of Mantar. Oh boy, I bet that's going to be a fun one to check out. That is Greetings from Allentown. Also, check out Juice Pro Wrestling, where this week, David C. Russell from the Deathmatch Russell podcast joins to discuss Deathmatch Wrestling podcasting, Game Changer Wrestling, and much more. That is on Juice Pro Wrestling. And check out the 24-inch podcast with Steve Bennett and Dave Rollins, as they do an entire podcast dedicated to their favorite wrestler of all time, Hulk Hogan. This time around, they discuss the war to settle the score with Rowdy Piper. And I do want to mention, to find this podcast, you have to type in the Sportscasters, and that's where you're going to find this podcast. It is the 24-inch podcast on the Sportscasters. Now, if you're looking for non-wrestling related podcasts, check out these podcasts. Check out the Best Pick Movie Podcast with Tom, John, and Jess. 3 lovers of movies. 3 actors, people that love to perform. They watch each and every Academy Award-winning Best Picture winner in no particular order, and they are getting close to the end. This week, they discuss the Best Picture winner of 2004, $1 Million Baby. That is this week on the Best Pick Movie Podcast. Also, check out Last Stop Penn Station as we look into the life of Carrie Silkin. This week, it is part 1 of Carrie Silkin talking about Hoboken. So if you live in Hoboken, you might want to check this out. It is this week on Last Stop Penn Station. Check out also the Castle Vault, which is a chronological deep dive of Disney animated films powered by Disney+. This week, they discuss the 2001 Pixar movie Monsters, Inc. This week on the Castle Vault. And on Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, it is part 2 of their interview with legendary guitarist and record producer Richard Bennett, who, besides recording with Weird Al, has performed with Neil Diamond, has toured with Mark Knopfler of Dire Straits, and much, much more this week on Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast. Also, check out Sharks Pond, a South Park podcast where I review and discuss each and every South Park episode. This week, I discuss the Season 11 episode, Yikes! That is this week on Sharks Pond, a South Park podcast. And finally, this coming Sunday, it is a brand new episode of Eliminated, a Royal Rumble podcast, where this time around, myself and Jim Boy Star, we have another watch along. We watched the New York Rumble, which took place in 1994, just a few days before the 1994 Royal Rumble event. That is this weekend on Eliminated, a Royal Rumble podcast. Alright, next week on the show, going to review NXT Takeover, going to preview the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, and much, much more. On that note, everybody have a good, safe weekend. No matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, have fun, be safe, and come back here next week for another episode of That Wrestling Show, the podcast where all pro wrestling matters. And as always, my hole!